Hello everyone. Good day to one and all. This is Miss A. Krishna Sundar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KAHM Unity Women's College, Manjeri. Today we would be dealing with the final speech in the movie The Great Dictator from the textbook Signatures Expressing the Self, which has been prescribed for BA/BSc General English students at Calicut University. I have already uploaded an introductory video based on the very same chapter in my channel Lit Screen, and this introductory video discussed the biographies of Charlie Chaplin and Hitler. Now this is the second part of the very same chapter, and we would be analyzing the whole text along with some question answer discussion in this presentation. So as we step into the chapter, let us see what this chapter is about. This chapter is in the form of a speech, and this is a motivating and inspiring speech. Chaplin discusses the dictatorship of Hitler in this chapter. He also adds how a true leader should be and how selfless a leader has to be. Chaplin also talks about human compassion, brotherhood, and unity. He also discusses how human beings should find the ground for sympathy and kindness within this chapter. So before we move into the chapter, let us get a clear-cut definition of what a speech is. A speech is an expression of thoughts or feelings. But if you express your thoughts or feelings on a very casual, colloquial way, that never becomes a speech. For a speech, it has to be in a formal address. Now, this can be divided into different forms because there are informative speeches, there are instructive speeches, there are speeches which can entertain you, and finally, speeches that can inspire you. Now, you will get a better understanding of the different types of speeches if I give you a better example for all these. The first one, to inform, suppose I'm going to give a speech on how earthquakes can happen, that is an informative speech. On the other hand, if I'm going to tell you how to bake a cake or how to take different positions in yoga, that is an instructive speech. On the other hand, suppose I'm going to give a speech on the 10 beautiful places that you can visit in Europe, that becomes an entertaining speech or an amusing speech. The last one, which is the most important one, is an inspiring speech. An inspiring speech is a speech which will instigate people to act. It is a motivating speech which will bring people into action. Maybe one of the most inspiring speeches in history or in mythology can be related with the speech done by Mark Antony in Julius Caesar. To take a few examples from the history, which is very closer to us, would be to connect it with Abraham Lincoln's speech during American Civil War and Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. All these are considered as inspiring speeches, and the one which we are going to learn, the speech by Chaplin too, is a motivating speech. So let's get into the chapter. So this is para 1. So this is how Chaplin begins his speech. I am sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. You might have understood the context in which this speech happens. If you have listened to the previous introductory session, you might understand that a Jewish barber is mistaken as the dictator. And this Jewish barber is actually asked to deliver a speech. People believe that this is the dictator, but this is not actually the dictator, but this is a Jewish barber. So he's actually venting out his emotions. I am sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. He says he doesn't want to become an emperor. That is not my business, because he is a Jewish barber and he is not interested in power. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible, Jew, Gentile, black man, and white. So see, he's actually talking about the divisions that we have made in the society. We divide people on the basis of color. We divide people on the basis of religion. So this kind of a division is what he is talking about. But if you look at a wider perspective, you can see that we all come under one umbrella term, which is known as human beings. So this is what he says. He says he wants to help everyone, Jew, Gentile, black man, and white. Gentile is a person who is not a Jew. So he says there is no segregation that he keeps in his mind. For him, all these people are human beings, and he wants to help each and every one in this world. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. So he says human beings are always dependent creatures. We just cannot exist in our own way just with our solitude. We have to depend on other people in order to survive. The great Greek philosopher Aristotle has once said that a person who can live independently should either be a beast or a god. Otherwise, as a normal human being, he cannot survive without dependence. So Chaplin says that we are human beings and we have to depend on each other. We don't want to hate and despise one another. We don't need to hate each another. In this world, there is room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. He says this world has got multiple resources and can feed every human being in this earth. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. So he says we have enough natural resources so that every single individual in this world can lead a happy life. Now, automatically, you might be having a question in your mind like, in such a scenario, why are some countries very poor? Why are some countries rich? Why are some people still under poverty and why are some people still starving to death? The answer is very simple because the earth gives enough and more natural resources to all the people in this area. But there is a kind of overaccumulation of power, or maybe you call it as overconsumption by one group that another group actually misses everything. So this is the answer for that simple question. So now Chaplin says the way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. So he's talking about power, corruption, greed, intolerance. All these things have in fact created a blemish on this beautiful world. So this paragraph actually deals with the differences, the divides, different kinds of people, and he also comes to the fact that we are all dependent creatures. He also adds that this earth is a wonderful place, but we have gone wrong somewhere and we have to correct it. Moving on to the next paragraph, this is para 2. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. Barricaded means to give some kind of a blockage. So greed has actually blocked the mind of the people here, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. You can see a picture here. You can see soldiers marching, and this particular rhythmic movement done by soldiers, this is what you call as goose stepping. So here he uses the same term telling that greed has goose stepped us into misery and bloodshed, into unhappiness and violence. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. So technologically we are advancing, but as human beings we are not. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Machinery which actually is helping the human beings here, it is not helping human beings to become more kind. It is only making them more violent. Our knowledge has made us cynical. Cynical means you are not interested or concerned with anybody else. It is more like a self-centered kind of life. Our cleverness, hard and unkind. We have become clever, but see how negative it is. We have become very hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. So we have started thinking too much, but we are not sensing the pain of others. Maybe this looks exactly right in the current scenario because we are in the COVID scenario as of now. And I'm sure each one of us definitely would be looking for the news at 6 p.m. every day. We actually take the count of the affected people every day, and as of now we see there is a surge in the number of coronavirus cases in Kerala as well as in India. So in a way, if you look at it from a different angle, we have become very insensitive. If you go back to March, you can see even the numbers like 2 people being affected by corona, 3 people being affected by corona, we were very shocked. But today, when you hear the numbers which are going in 300s and 400s, we have become very insensitive to that numbers. So this is what he is also talking about, that we have become very insensitive. We are not able to understand the pain of other people. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. So he says, more than machinery, we need humanity, and more than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness, the best qualities. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. So he says these are the basic general qualities that we require as human beings. So in this paragraph, he says how people have changed, how technology has influenced us, and how we have become very insensitive. Coming to paragraph 3, the airplane and the radio have brought us closer together. So once again, how we are progressing with facilities and technology. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. So this is what technology asks for, the unity of human beings. But unfortunately, it is not what exactly happens. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. So he says that even when he is conducting this speech, there are a lot number of people, millions around the world, who are completely disillusioned, disappointed, and are tortured. And he says when power vests with one minority, that minority will definitely enslave the other majority. Now we know how the segregation works, and we know how this racial, religious kind of segregation still remains in our society. Maybe we have come across the recent news, the recent incident which happened in America when George Floyd, the black man, was killed by a white. So we can see these kind of things are still happening around us. So how some people are tortured and imprisoned by another group. So in this paragraph, he is talking about how technology conquered us, but we have forgotten universal brotherhood. Now, in this context, I would like to take you to a movie which is titled as The Island, and this would be my recommendation for you because if you can watch this movie, it would be really great. You can download it in torrents. It's a very beautiful movie which you can easily connect with what Chaplin says. This movie is about a group of people who are actually imprisoned in a cell. They believe that they are normal human beings, but it is only at the end that we realize that these people who are imprisoned are not real human beings, but they are clones of another group who are the great celebrities like politicians, movie actors, football players, etc. So they are actually retained and imprisoned as clones, the duplicates of the original human beings in the outside world. Now, this is done because in case if anything happens to the real characters outside, for example, if they come across a kind of an accident or some kind of diseases, these clones will be used. Their organs will be taken out and used for the real people. So these clones are actually enslaved kind of people. So it's a very beautiful movie, a very innovative kind of concept. So you can download it in torrents and watch it because it will be a very good watch, definitely. Okay, so getting on to the next paragraph. This is paragraph 4. Chaplin continues, "To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress." So now he is trying to give hope. He tells that do not get worried, do not despair, because this misery which is stuck on us right now will move. Now, this is a basic kind of solution that we all believe in. We believe if you are going through a very bad stage, we believe that this stage will pass. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. So he is, in fact, criticizing the dictators around the world. He says that dictators have taken the power of the people, and once we get the power back, we will be happy continuously and completely. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. So he says, as long as there are people fighting for freedom and liberty, this kind of a sense will not perish, and let us stand together. So he's giving a kind of consolation for the people here, saying that this phase will pass and there is still hope waiting, because that is how we believe in fate. We all believe in hope, else we cannot survive each day in this world. So coming to the next part, that is para 5. Now para 5 is a plea to the soldiers. He says, "Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, hate you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, who compartmentalize your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel." Now, see, if you can't think in your own way, if you can't do things in your own way, if you can do things, if you can think only from the point of view of another person, you are not considered as a human being anymore. You become a machine. Now, this is what he says. These soldiers are actually enslaved by the dictators. And these dictators have compartmentalized their lives. They tell them what to do, they tell them what to think, and therefore they are just machines. The dictators drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, they treat you like animals, and use you as cannon fodder. Now, using you as a cannon fodder means using you as a commodity, as a material, as a non-living entity. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men. And he calls these dictators as unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. So they don't have anything as human within them. They are completely machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. He's telling the soldiers, you are but not machines. You are not animals. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. Only those people who never got love. Only those people can hate. Maybe this is true because if you go back to the biography of Hitler, you can see that as a young boy, he was tortured continuously by his father. Maybe this was one reason why he became a totally different man. The unloved and the unnatural. So the dictators are unloved and unnatural. Soldiers don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. So this is an advice that he gives to the soldiers. You can fight, but not for slavery, fight for liberty. So this is in fact a plea to the soldiers, and he's asking them to free themselves from the chains of the dictators. So your fight should be a fight for liberty. Moving on to the next paragraph, this is para 6. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written, "The kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men in you." So he is connecting this with religion. Maybe religion gives you some kind of a solution when you are really in trouble. When you go through a very bad phase, religion can definitely help you because religion stands as a pedestal on which you can lean onto. So he talks about the chapter of St. Luke where it is written, "The kingdom of God is within man." Now there is a book by Tolstoy with the very same title. The kingdom of God is within man means your power is within yourself. It is in you. You, the people, have the power. The power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. So the real power is within every individual, but you have to find it out and bring that out. So he's actually imploring the people to think about the power within themselves. So he brings religion as the only solution here, and he also tells them that your power is within you. Now, in paragraph 7, he begins like this. Then, in the name of democracy, let us use that power, let us all unite. So in para 6, he was talking about a power within all these human beings, and now he is revealing what that power is. And definitely, that power is democracy. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. So he says, let us use democracy as a tool to fight against the dictators. And what we need is a new world, a better world, a decent world. And maybe he is relating to the problems that people are suffering during the 1950s, but standing in 2020, we can see that things have not changed on a greater plane, because in every country, especially in our country, definitely in India, we talk a lot about unemployment, highly educated people but who are not getting enough opportunities for employment or work. So this democracy will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. So he says that these dictators have come to power by giving us a lot of promises, but unfortunately, they will never keep these promises. Now, we all know that during political campaigns, how different political parties will give you different kinds of promises. But definitely, the moment they come into power, they forget about these promises. So, this happens with every political party, not just in one country, it happens all over the world. So he says they give you promises, but they are actually lying. They do not fulfill that promise, they never will. So these dictators will never fulfill their promise. So, in short, para 7 is about using democracy as a tool, and let us fight for a new world, and that dictators will never fulfill their promise. So he's actually enlightening the people who are listening to them and imploring them, instigating them to put themselves into action. So coming into the last paragraph, this is para 8. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. So they enjoy freedom, but they will curtail the freedom of common people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. So, at least for the moment, let us forget about national borders and national boundaries. Let us stay together as one single unit, as human beings of this world, and let us use the tool democracy to fight for our freedom. Let us do away with greed, hate, and intolerance. Let's keep all these negative emotions away from us. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. So let us stay together and let us find science and technology as methods which can help us progress in our ways. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite. So specifically, he calls the name of soldiers and he tells them, in the name of democracy, let us all unite. So in para 8, he is actually urging each and every one to stand together and to fight together for a better world. So in short, this paragraph says, let us fight for happiness, and let us unite and change this world. So with this, we come to the end of the analysis of the chapter. We have completed all the 8 paragraphs here. Now, let us move into the next part, which is just a summing up of all the 8 paragraphs. Para 1 says that we are all different, but still we are dependent creatures. Para 2 says how greed has poisoned all of us. And paragraph 3 deals with how technology has conquered us. In the next paragraph, Chaplin says that this is a very terrible phase, but don't worry, this phase will pass and there is hope. The fifth paragraph is a plea. This is a request to the soldiers. He tells them to fight for liberty. Para 6, he says that there is power hidden within each and every one. And in para 7, he says what that power is. That power which is hidden within ourselves is the power of democracy. And para 8, the last paragraph, it is in this paragraph that he implores each and every one to stand together, to unite and fight for liberty. So this is the crux of the entire chapter, staying together, getting united and fighting against the dictators and finding your own freedom. So let's move into the question and answer session. Now this is the objective questions. Question number 1. Charlie Chaplin plays the role of a Jewish barber in the film. The answer is the great dictator. Dash has poisoned men's souls. That comes in the second paragraph. The answer is greed. Question number 3. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written, the kingdom of God is within man. So these are the 3 objective questions. Now let's move on to the short answer questions. What, according to Chaplin, are the qualities without which life will be violent? Chaplin talks about the importance of humanity. He adds that more than cleverness, we need gentleness and kindness, and without these qualities, life would be violent. The second question, name the power that will unite the world. People have power hidden within themselves through which they can lead a free and beautiful life. He implores his people to unite in the name of democracy to fight against the dictators of the world. Now, maybe I am reading it out on a faster pace, but don't get worried. You can pause. If you want to write it down, you can write it down. Or if you want to read it in a slow pace, you can do that by pausing the video. Okay, so getting on to the next part. This is a paragraph question. The power of democracy, according to Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin believes that democracy has the power to bring people together. He tells his people that democracy will give people a new world and a chance for men to work. Democracy promises future for young men and security for all people. Broods become dictators in the name of democracy and refrain themselves from fulfilling the promises they had given to the people. Democracy will bring in a world of reason where every man can lead a happy life. Thus, he instigates his people through his motivating speech to fight in the name of democracy. Moving on to the next question. This is again the second paragraph question. Dictatorship versus democracy. These are things which we have already discussed while analyzing the text. Dictators claim to fulfill their promises, but they never will. They will free themselves and enslave the common people. They are unnatural men. They are like machines with a machine heart. They will regiment the lives of common people and will treat them like cannon fodder. They are filled with greed, hatred, and intolerance. Meanwhile, democracy unites people and will give them a balance of equality. Democracy fulfills its promises to citizens and will provide a new, decent world to the people. Democracy is a power which can give happiness to its people. Democracy will provide a future for the young and security for the old. So these are just repetitive points which we have already discussed. Now coming to the last part, the essay question. How does Charlie Chaplin criticize dictatorship in The Great Dictator? Now being this an essay question, you can actually give an introduction on Chaplin. You can give an introduction on what this chapter is about in general, and then you can relate with how an inspiring speech can happen and how far an inspiring speech can influence the people. And then again, you can talk about dictatorship. Then you can talk about what kind of people these dictators are. They are machine men with machine hearts. They are unnatural. They are unloved. They enslave people. They treat soldiers like commodities. They use power. They make use of corruption. They are enslaving the common people, the innocent people. They are torturing people. You can definitely relate with Hitler, the concentration camps, etc., which we have discussed in the initial first part introductory session. Now, if you're going to expand all these points into a paragraph, that becomes an essay. Okay, so coming to the next question. Charlie Chaplin's view of the new world and the great dictator. Again, you can give an introduction on Chaplin and the chapter. Now, what is this new world that he is talking about? This is a world with power where each one is vested with power. And this power is actually the power of democracy. And democracy can give a happy life to everyone. There is balance and equality with democracy. There is no segregation. Everyone should be treated equally. Again, you can talk about how young will have a future, old will have security. We can come across the problems like unemployment. We can actually overcome these problems, security for old and unemployment with the young people. So democracy actually helps us to move forward in all these complicated situations, but for that, people should unite together. Democracy can unite people so that people can stand together and fight for their freedom. So if you expand all these points, this will make another essay. On the other hand, if you bring up all the 8 paragraphs together, the summary of the 8 paragraphs together, that again will give you another essay. So with this, we come to the end of the session. Now, thank you very much for your patient listening. In case if you have got any queries or suggestions, you can definitely connect with me. Please do not hesitate to connect with me in my email ID. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you once again.